Good morning and happy Red Friday, Chiefs Kingdom. It is Raider Week. So, something that used to be really exciting, heated rivalry that standed the test of time has lost a little bit of luster because the other team isn't really holding up their end of the bargain here in a rivalry. You got to be facing somebody competitive nowadays. Chiefs rivals are more Cincinnati, Buffalo, Baltimore than they are the teams in the division. Now, that doesn't mean Raiders, Broncos, Chargers, you don't get just totally geared up as a Chiefs fan to take these guys on. But Raider week, Chiefs are heading to Las Vegas for a 325 game this Sunday. We're going to talk about it, but before we get into that, naturally you have to start with the DeAndre Hopkins news coming out of Wednesday morning. So you wake up Wednesday, you see the trades finalized. Schefter, Rappaport, and the gang, they're putting things out there. And for me personally, DeAndre Hopkins has been a long time, I guess, favorite non-Chiefs player to watch. It was kind of similar to when the Chiefs signed Darrelle Revis. I was always a big Darrelle Revis fan. My only hope is that this yields a much different result. Things did not work out quite as well with Revis here in Kansas City, some blown plays and things like that. Wasn't quite himself. I don't think that's going to be the case for DeAndre Hopkins. D-Hop comes over, conditional 4th-round pick. 5th-round pick could become a 4th. There's parameters there. But I think the most important thing about this trade is that it shores up a major need for Kansas City in the wide receiver room. Pretty much down to just 4 guys after Juju injures his hamstring in the game against the Niners. So a move needed to be made, right? Whether they were trading for somebody, whether they were going to sign somebody, right? MVS was recently released. It was like, are they going to bring back their old friend Marquez? We don't know what's going to happen. Rumors flying around, and ultimately it lands on DeAndre Hopkins, a guy who's been rumored to Kansas City for the last couple years, finally making his way to Kansas City, and it's a beautiful thing, man. It's going to be awesome. He's not the DeAndre Hopkins that led the league in touchdowns in 2017, but he is going to be a much improved wide receiver than what the Chiefs have seen post Rashee Rice, right? This is a guy who has less than 2% career drops, a guy who can run any route on the route tree, and a guy who ultimately is a future Hall of Famer and has something to play for moving forward with Kansas City. He said it himself in the presser. I've done everything I've wanted to do from a career standpoint as an individual. Now it's time to start stacking up those team accolades. He has not played in any meaningful football since the 2019 divisional game against Kansas City. So an opportunity for him to come out there and make his mark in a postseason and potentially be a part of what could be the greatest dynasty the NFL has seen and cement that as part of his legacy is a huge opportunity. And I do not think he is missing that point by any means. So DeAndre Hopkins, pretty exciting. Subsequent moves, Justin Ross becomes number 82. DeAndre Hopkins snatched number 8 in memory of Kobe. Pretty awesome to do that there. And ultimately, a roster spot was needed, so Sky Moore goes to the injured reserve. Now, he was a full participant the day before they put him on the injured reserve, and now all of a sudden he's getting core muscle surgery. You guys can put your tinfoil hat and put together what you want about that. I have my own thoughts about it. I think with the NFL, the rules are set in place, and in a lot of ways, they're meant to be broken, right? The face mask last night that resulted in a call for the Vikings, or I guess a non-call for the Rams, rather. That's a rule that was broken. right? The cap rules. There are ways of getting around these things. So the Chiefs needed a roster spot. Sky Moore, don't want to really cut him on a 2-year or on year 3 of his rookie deal. Keep him healthy maybe for long term, see what they can do with him. I think it makes a lot of sense to maneuver it in this way. So all things considered, DeAndre Hopkins, great addition. I think the trade was fantastic in terms of the compensation. I think that's the only thing you worry about if you're Brett Veach, if you're a Chiefs fan, is what is the team giving up long term for a player like this? And I think the compensation was absolutely fair, and I am so pumped to see him already getting reps and already becoming a part of the game plan for the Raiders this weekend. The Chiefs are focused on gearing him up in a very quick way. Let's shift this to the Raiders. By now, you guys are listening to it. D-Hop has been on the Chiefs for a couple days now, so you know the discourse. Let's talk these injuries. So far, with the injury report, Mike Danis still not practicing. Juju Smith-Schuster already ruled out on Monday. So you can expect those guys to be maybe in street clothes on the sideline out in Vegas. And a lot of other names really are popping up on this injury report. Kareem Hunt, limited participant. I guarantee you he ends up playing. Not the kind of guy that will miss time typically. But some other guys on the injury report maybe to watch: Justin Reed, Derek Nottie, Jaden Hicks, who had a great game, got his first pick, and Mecole Hardman as well. Important to note Mecole here because of how thin the Chiefs are at wide receiver. Even with DeAndre Hopkins, it gives you Hopkins, Watson, Hardman, and Ross at the moment with no healthy Juju. So probably going to be a lot of 12 personnel, right? Multiple tight end sets. Get you in a situation where you don't have to stretch those wide receivers. You can kind of rotate them in and out, give them limited reps. I absolutely see this being a game where the Chiefs focus on the run game as a result of where the roster is right now. On the Raiders side of the ball, Max Crosby did not participate on Thursday. My guess is it's maybe maintenance related. He's had some rumblings about his ankle and some other things going on there, but I would be shocked to see the Raiders without Max Crosby on Sunday. Backup tight end Harrison Bryant, no participation, probably not going to play. Same with Dylan Parham, their starting guard, and Jacoby Myers' status up in the air. Jacoby Myers, their new number 1. So that's actually a huge loss if for whatever reason he cannot make his way to the field. The Raiders will be feeling that. No Aiden O'Connell. I believe he was placed on IR earlier this week. And Gardner Minshew also on the injury report. So a lot of question marks for the Raiders on top of just a tumultuous season. The injury report is not very kind to them at the moment either. So let's go into this game, because with the Chiefs playing in Vegas, the last time they made their way out to Vegas and played in the stadium, they hoisted the Lombardi at the end of the game against the Niners. And there's a lot of storylines coming into it, right? It's not a marquee matchup by any stretch of the imagination. You have the 6-0 Kansas City Chiefs going against a bottom tier AFC team. They're sitting in the basement of the AFC West as it stands right now. But the bulletin board material for both teams is there, right? The Chiefs come into your stadium. You're sitting at home in February and they hoist a Lombardi, champagne showers in your locker room, and you have to watch that go down. That's not a good feeling. That's not fun. That's something that the Raiders are going to carry with them coming into this game. And if you look on the other side of things, Patrick Mahomes, the whole incident with Kermit the Frog and training camp and all those things, Mahomes said, well, it'll get taken care of when it gets taken care of. That's something he's holding on to for sure coming into this game. So both these teams have that added fuel to the fire in addition to what is already a heated rivalry between these two teams. You think there's always a layer of respect for sure. It's not like they're clearing the benches or anything like that and getting into fights and scuffles. Not too much anyway. You get the odd fight here and there, but for these guys, there's a lot of bulletin board material coming into it where, they can kind of, channel that energy into a competitive game. Now the Chiefs, what they're going to need to do to get a win in this scenario, play mistake-free football. Don't turn the ball over. That's what caused the downfall of the Chiefs in the last showdown against the Raiders. They threw multiple interceptions, turned the ball over multiple times, gave them short field, gave the Raiders opportunities to capitalize on mistakes made by the offense that could just never get going, put the defensive players in tough positions where they had to defend a short field, and even allowed pick sixes, right? The Raiders didn't complete a second half pass on Christmas Day and beat the Kansas City Chiefs last year. So the offense is kind of in the same place from a receiver standpoint, right? You got guys that, and DeAndre Hopkins doesn't know the system fully yet. And then with the rest of those guys, they're pretty much holdovers from that game where the Chiefs got just totally stomped, minus Xavier Worthy. So you look at it in that capacity, and you just got to say, Kansas City, keep it clean. Keep it clean. If you could do that, there's no doubt in my mind this game is a no-brainer win for the Chiefs. Now, what they're going to need to do, in addition to just playing clean football, is they're going to have to get that running game going early and often. If Max Crosby is playing and you're trying to pass the ball to some guys who maybe don't fully understand the offense, I mean, Xavier Worthy is even still getting geared up in this offense. Crosby's going to have himself a day. He's going to be attacking the left tackle spot all day long. That's where the Chiefs have the least experience on the offensive line, and that's going to be a key focus for the Raiders. So you got to make sure that pocket's clean. You got to get that running game going so that when you run those play-action plays, when you run that 12-man personnel and you decide to throw that 3-yard out for a short third down conversion, those things can actually happen for Kansas City. So keeping that pocket clean, keeping that running game true is going to be huge for Kansas City. And on the same token, right, what do the Raiders need to do to give Kansas City fits? It's what I was just kind of alluding to there. Max Crosby's got to be Max Crosby. He's got to come in and wreck the game, and it's up to the Chiefs to prevent him from doing that because he has every skill set and tool and at his disposal to be that game-changing player on the defensive side of the ball. On the offensive side of the ball, it gets a little trickier. They traded Devontae Adams to the Jets. He's no longer a Raider. So that's something the Chiefs don't have to game plan for, but where does that leave them focusing the defense, right? They have two dynamic tight ends in Michael Mayer and, of course, Brock Bowers, the alliteration gang. They have to focus on those guys and make sure that they don't beat you because Bowers is dynamic. He's like a young Kelsey. You can line him up anywhere. He can run any route. He can do it clean. And he can make you pay, and he's a mismatch because of his speed for linebackers and because of his size and strength for those defensive backs. So if he can break some big plays off on Shamari Connor, on Nick Bolton and Leo Chenal in key moments, the Raiders can stay in this game. And if they keep it close, they could potentially win if they end up with the ball last. So we've seen it before, right? Anything's possible in the NFL. This feels like a cakewalk game. Vegas thinks it will be. We'll talk about the spread here in a second. But if the Raiders are able to come in and shock the world the same way they did to the Ravens in week 2 of this NFL season, something that a lot of national pundits have forgot about as they rank the Ravens above the Chiefs. Because I guarantee you the Chiefs lose to the Raiders this weekend, it's going to be a blemish. Not as much of a blemish for the Ravens, I guess, but I digress on that point. If the Raiders are able to come in and shock Kansas City in this game, it's going to come down to Max Crosby being a game wrecker. It's going to come down to short field situations and turnovers like what we saw in that Christmas game. It's going to come down to the Raiders' ability. Antonio Pierce says he has the game plan, the recipe to beat the Chiefs. If he can do that on the defensive side of the ball and limit the Chiefs' offense, then I will believe him. Other than that, the chances are between slim and none. And Vegas agrees. Let's move it into the lines for this weekend. This thing opened at 4.5. It has slowly shifted more and more and more towards Kansas City in this regard. The Chiefs 9.5-point favorites in this game. Massive favorites. If this was played in Kansas City, you'd see a double-digit line here, and it has potential to move that way. Not sure where the sharps are betting, but according to DraftKings, 9.5 points in favor of Kansas City. I would take that 9.5 if I'm betting on Kansas City. I don't. Bad luck. Last time I did, it was the 2020 Super Bowl, so you can imagine what that was like. But 9.5 points, pretty healthy. Vegas thinks it's going to be a runaway. I do too. I'm taking those points. The total, 41.5. Usually, if a team covers a huge gap like that, the under's hitting. Because it means one team's maybe putting up 30, 28, 25 points. The other team puts up 7, 10, maybe. So, do I think this could become a 31-6 game? Absolutely. But that puts you in the under territory. So I'm going with the under. You got the Chiefs offense traveling. You got the Raiders offense dealing with multiple injuries. Even if this is a close game, it's 20-17 and you still have your under. So I don't think it's going to be a close game. I think this is going to be in blowout territory. I think the Chiefs are going to let their foot off the gas if they get to a point maybe in mid-third where they're carrying this game and they're off to the races, and they're going to start pulling these guys that are starting so they don't have to worry about any more injuries. I mean, that's been a plaguing scenario. We saw it with the Vikings last night, right? A couple seconds left in the first half. Darrisaw, their lead left tackle, gets rolled up on, best offensive lineman they have. Now all of a sudden he's dealing with what could potentially be the worst case scenario, ligament damage, best case scenario, a high ankle sprain. So avoid those situations, please, Kansas City. And if they do that, I know Andy Reid will focus on that. This under's hitting. So Raider week, big fun week coming ahead. Get your red on today. Appreciate everybody listening. Hopefully we'll get Trey back next week. We can have some more conversation going into Monday night, right? Is that the Monday night matchup against Tampa Bay? Look at me unprepared on stream here. Yep, so Monday night, preparing for that big time game against Tampa Bay, who has all of a sudden found themselves shorthanded at the wide receiver position as well. A little urgency for the Chiefs to get that deal done. Some people were saying, I just got to say, some people are saying as a response to the Amari Cooper trade, why Kansas City made their deal with Tennessee to get DeAndre Hopkins. The people that are saying that, do they realize who was on the roster, who's been hurt for Kansas City so far? It's more of a necessity move than a I need to catch up with Buffalo move, right? So, last thing I'll say about the D-Hop trade, I think that take is funny. If anyone is chasing anyone, it is every other team in the NFL chasing Kansas City. That's a fact. They're the two-time defending Super Bowl champions, and they have a true solid chance to defend that title for a second time, become three-time champions, three-time consecutive champions rather, and make NFL history. So I'll leave you guys with that. Get you pumped up going into your Red Friday. Get through your work day and enjoy a Chiefs Red weekend. Follow the show at the fastest_40 IGX. You can check us out on the video stream on Odyssey Sports page. You can listen to us on the free Odyssey Sports app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere you catch your podcasts. Thank you, and have a great day. Go Chiefs. Peace.